Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we are going to look at the top 10 Marvel Legends for the year. Now you guys know for these videos, it's a lot harder to be completely objective. I'm still going to try to base my ratings as much on objective qualities as I can, though of course I will have to just weigh in with what I think is good and for various reasons, and I'll try to describe that as I go. But of course, also, this list could change. It has changed. Like, every time I've looked at it, I've moved things around or added things and taken things away, so it could change on any given day. Marvel Legends are not so unique from release to release that it's super easy to do this, but these are some of the better ones, I think, and if you have your own list, I'm happy to hear it. So if you guys have your ideas that you disagree with me, you can go ahead and just put it in the comment section below, or if you agree, we can talk about that. But if you do have your 10 list that you figured out on your own, go ahead and put that down there, and I'll see if I can get a comment on at least most of them. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with an honorable mention. Now, the reason I'm counting this guy as an honorable mention is because he could have been a lot better, even though he's really good. I probably could have put him up higher, but he ended up here, and I'm just going to leave him here. It's because he's just solid silver, and I think the sculpt isn't quite enough to do him justice. It's a really, really, really good-looking Ultron. It's probably the best one we have. I want him to be a little bit bulkier in this older design, and I do really like the silver paint, though, and it just goes to show that when Hasbro does silver paint, they can do a really, really good job. So I wanted to get him on the list, even though I didn't quite feel right about putting him up a little bit higher. Coming in at number 10, I had to include the Hand Ninja, which was sold at Hasbro Pulse in this little tiny box. It is just a reissue, but it comes with a boatload of accessories, relatively speaking, and it comes with a boatload of paint. The sculpt does still suffer from whatever problems it had before, but it was only like $15 or $16. Explain to me why this one's able to be sold for that price, but all the other figures that are just repainted versions of the same mold can't be. It doesn't really make any sense. It's a really weird thing that they did right before they did a price hike of like 60%. So it's strange that this release exists at all, but it is also a really solid release. You can't beat it for the price point, and price does become a big factor when you're talking about something like Marvel Legends. For number 9, I wanted to get this Hulk in here. Is it worth the price? Maybe not as much, but also it came with a really cool energy effect type accessory, the Stomp accessory, and I think this is the best colored Hulk that we've gotten from Hasbro ever. Now that, of course, is going to be down to personal preference, but I really like the dark green with the lighter green shading and the purple pants with the torn spots, and I happen to actually really like the head sculpts too. Yeah, they could be a little bit better and the hair is somewhat questionable, but for me, this is going to be my go-to Hulk, and I just wanted to get him on the list for that reason. I think a lot of people would agree. It's either this one or the 80th, but I think this one takes the cake. Coming in at number 8, we have the animated Cyclops, and don't get me wrong, this guy is not making the list for the paint job. It's still an awful paint job, but I have to say this is one of the best reuse of body situations that we've seen. This is the Cyclops I think we've wanted for forever in terms of the sculpt and in terms of the execution of the harness, and it actually just looks like the cartoon version of the character. I'm very pleased with it from a sculpt and reuse perspective. Again, the paint does hold it back, so hopefully we get a reissue, but it's a strong release, and I can't imagine anybody's going to be dissatisfied with this figure aside from the paint being a bummer. Number 7 on the list goes to what might be a surprise. It's Shocker. I know a lot of people said it wasn't a good release. I beg to differ. It's all new sculpt work, and they actually did a really good job with the sculpt. The proportioning is awesome. The quilt pattern on his suit is done really well. Does it need more paint? Well, some people don't think so for the line work. I tend to think it does. And yeah, it does have a few issues here and there, but with a little bit of tender love and care, you can bring this figure to life, and that means that it is a good figure at its core, and it is an all-new sculpt, so I'm very happy to add it to the list. Coming in at number 6, I had to include Maggott, and this is not a character I have any affinity for, but I think they just did a really good job. It has enough new stuff going on that I'm very pleased with that. It has some cool accessories, and it has some decent paint job. There's just not a whole lot this thing's missing. I guess the biggest thing you could argue is that the shoulder area is weird because it's just supposed to be a poofy coat, I think, and it turned it into some kind of weird shoulder pad situation, but they had to sacrifice in order for it to be a big poofy coat, I guess. But yeah, this is a strong release. I don't don't know how many people care about the character, but if you're just looking for decent Marvel Legends figures regardless of character, this should be on your list. In at number 5, we have the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. I hold that this is the best Spider-Man that Hasbro has released. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I'm pretty sure I did a Photoshop when I did the review for this guy that showed how it should still be better. Even though they're making new molds, they're still not doing things completely correctly, but this figure does do a lot of things in at least close to the right way, and it's relatively well executed, and it poses well. I think I have to go back and check one by one, but I'm pretty sure this is the best posing Hasbro Spider-Man figure, and it's just a really good looking figure. There's not a whole lot that it leaves you wanting, other than the webbing in the armpits being pretty terrible. This is a solid Spider-Man. If you don't mind the first appearance version, this is definitely the one you want to pick up. Alrighty, for number 4, we have the Herald of Galactus, Thor. I don't know how many of you guys like this guy, but I put him on the list because he's in Fortnite. No, I'm joking, of course. I put him on the list because it's completely new sculpt work. I think maybe there's like a little bit here and there, but it's a really solid new sculpted figure with a bunch of accessories, and it's executed reasonably well. There are things you could add, like the nebulous pattern on the inside of the cape. I think, was that this guy or is that a different guy? I don't know, you could tell me. But there's things that could be done better, but it is a really strong release, and if you don't mind this version of Thor, it's one of the better Thor figures out there. For number 3, we have a little bit of a surprise, and I think Zemo is the guy that fills the spot. It's a Walgreens exclusive. I didn't get it for the longest time because it's hard to track down things at Walgreens sometimes. But there's a lot going on here that's really good, despite the fact that it reuses some Bucky Cap parts. It has a few new parts, and it has a wonderful head sculpt, and the nice little floofy things around the sleeves, and yeah, the elbows on these sleeved arms are not great, but all in all, this figure as a whole is a really good release. It has the paintwork you need on it. The only thing it's missing is the gun if you want that particular version, but otherwise, this is going to be a go-to figure for basically anybody who wants a Baron Zemo that's even close to this version. It's a nice, strong release. Now, coming in at number 2 is a figure that I would have put at number 1. However, the only way to get this guy outside of eBay was to back a hugely expensive giant Galactus figure. That's not this figure's fault, but you do have to figure in what it costs to get this guy. It's not going to be an easy thing to do. It wasn't just a standard 25, 30, 35, whatever they cost release. So that's a problem, but this is, at least in recent history, one of the best sculpted, best proportioned, best articulated, best considered figures that Hasbro has put out. Yes, it has some problems. Some things look pretty plasticky, and his wash could be better applied, and things like that, I guess, maybe an energy effect. But like I said, his proportioning is awesome. He actually looks like a comic book character. Big arms, big chest, skinnier waist, big thighs. The knees pinch in, the calves stick out, the ankles pinch in, the head's not huge. It's like almost the perfect storm of what you do correctly in a Marvel Legends figure, and it's all right here. Why we don't get it more often, who knows, but this figure does have it. Now, coming in at number 1, it's probably no surprise to anyone at this point that Darwin is the best of all pop culture characters. He has defeated basically everyone he has come up against. He's been able to overcome their powers. He's taken on whatever abilities they've had, and he's just absorbed and assimilated and evolved as necessary to become the best Marvel Legends figure, best action figure of all time. No, of course, I'm only joking. I had to get him in here, though. What is actually number 1 is the Walmart exclusive Doctor Strange. And the reason this guy is number 1 is because he comes with some stuff that you wouldn't normally see. He's got a decent spread of accessories. He's got a decent paint job. He's got a decent comic look. Like, it's basically everything you want in a Marvel Legends figure, and it doesn't even have to be crazy involved or anything. It's just a guy in a skirt and a cape, and they just did it overall really well. The paint is where it needs to be. The sculpt is where it needs to be. There's nothing on this guy that is drastically in need of a change. It's just a perfect example of what basically every Marvel Legends should be. Now, there are going to be some characters that are more simple or more basic, or they just need to cost less to produce in order to account for other ones. I get it, but this guy's a good example of how you want just your go-to Marvel Legends figure to come out. It's a really good release. It's Doctor Strange, so hopefully you like him. If not, well, there's a bunch of other figures on this list that you might want to check out. So there it is, guys. That's my top 10 list for Marvel Legends for the year. I will have other top 10 lists coming out either before or after this, depending on when you're watching it. So make sure you check out those. But again, if you had anything different on your list, or if you just disagree with something I said, or if you do agree with something I said, go ahead and put it in the comment section below and we will talk. But that'll do it for Marvel Legends for the year. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe. If you want to subscribe, there's some stuff here. I've got new videos almost every single day, and I've got thousands already sitting on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.